Ahead of the 2025 annual meetings, the IMF has spotlighted India as a standout in the global economy, raising its growth forecast, praising reform momentum as well, and calling the country a key engine of global expansion amid rising global uncertainty. Here's our report. Ahead of the IMF-World Bank annual meetings in October 2025, the IMF has offered a notably upbeat assessment of India's economy. The IMF raised India's 2025 GDP growth forecast to 6.6%, citing strong Q1 performance that offset the impact of US tariffs. IMF Managing Director Kristalina Georgieva called India a key driver of global growth, especially as other major economies slow down. Georgieva praised India's bold reforms and consistent policies, saying the country is proving its doubters wrong. India's June quarter GDP hit a five-quarter high of 7.8%, driven by manufacturing, services and construction.
प्रधानमंत्री मोदी जी के नेतृत्व में भारत निश्चित विश्व की सबसे तेज गति से बढ़ने वाली अर्थव्यवस्था इस साल भी रहेगी, आगे आने वाले कई वर्षों तक बनी रहेगी और 2047 तक जो विकसित भारत बनाने का दृढ़ संकल्प लेके देश चला है, उसमें हम अवश्य सफलता पाएंगे.
The IMF's remarks position India as a standout performer in a challenging global landscape, with reform momentum and resilience at the heart of its economic story.
We have in our report a downside scenario. These are not these very specific details of what is being considered right now, but it illustrates the potential for the global economy to take a turn for the worse if trade tensions become more elevated.
While the momentum appears strong, the IMF does forecast that growth is expected to moderate slightly to 6.2% next year. Bureau Report, DD India. And to help us unpack this and put it into context, we have with us Dr. Nilanjan Bonik, senior economist. Dr. Bonik, thanks for being with us. Now, what reforms have influenced the IMF's upgraded growth forecast for India?
There are two important reforms, Mark, which has happened this year. First, when the budget was placed, Finance Minister has given a big boost to the middle income category people by slashing down the income tax rate. And recently what we have seen is the rationalization of GST. Now this too means a big boost to the consumption expenditure. Now you should know that one of the biggest driving factor for the India's GDP is our consumption expenditure. It contributes close to 60% of our GDP. And what is happening because of GST rationalization and because of giving more purchasing power in the hand of the middle class, you see that more and more number of rural sector participation is coming into play. For instance, you have also noticed government is giving a big push to digitization. Yes. So all this way of doing transaction, be it through UPI or for Google Pay, are actually trying to democratize the way we do business. Also, because of GST rationalization, we see more number of MSME players. They Yes. are actually now getting credit because now their account is getting formalized. Also because of their transaction using digital payment system.
So Dr. Bonik, Dr. Bonik, you're highlighting a lot on the domestic economy front and the sustained pressure or the actual demand pull factor. But how sustainable is India's current growth trajectory given the tariff pressures that the US has put on the global economy?
See, tariff pressure is not going to impact that much. Even if you look into the IMF report, elsewhere in the world, the impact of tariff they are saying is only 0.7%. It's actually less than 1%. Now, why that is happening? Because most of the countries, they have already negotiated with US, and they are actually, the effective rate of US tariff has now drastically come down from that 25% to around 14%. The only two countries with which US is still going to reach an agreement is China and India. You have heard that yesterday or last week, US have imposed 100% fresh tariff on China. Now, both China and India they are domestically very strong. And India, of late, we have signed lots of free trade agreement with other countries, predominantly in Europe as well as Middle East. So in terms of Indian exports, in addition to our domestic consumption, because domestic consumption is resilient, because if you look into the demographic factor, we have one of the youngest demography. The median age of our population is 28%. So the consumption is going to sustain at this level, if not grow further.
Right.
And because of these reforms, which I just now stated, what you're going to see more and more economic activities are going to formalize, which is also going to have a positive impact on the growth rate of GDP. You should also remember earlier what was happening because before the rationalization of tax rate, or for that matter, government initiative for digitization, or for that matter, government initiative to put money into a manufacturing sector in terms of giving them more benefit, or for that matter, building all the infrastructure. These have got huge multiplier effect. And that is actually creating more income generating more income in the hands of people. And that is why we are seeing that the Indian economy is resilient. And quarter after quarter, we are recording growth in excess of 6.5%.
Yes, indeed.
So
Dr. Bonik, you mentioned about the resilience of the Indian economy, but how are we talking about long-term resilience as well? Or is this, because the reforms you mentioned were 2 for this year, should that reform model be continuing for the medium to long term for that resilience to continue?
I think the reform is going to continue. For instance, what I expect from the government is to see reforms coming in the labor laws, because although the central government has initiated reforms in the labor law, but if you are looking into some of the states in particular, it is not being implemented. So when the labor law is also implemented at the state level, also if you see in terms of disinvestment, that is another set of reform which the government can undertake. All these future reforms will actually again bolster our economic resilience, something I was talking about.
Indeed.
And I'm very sure that going forward, because of our demography, because of our young working age population, because of our push into the domestic manufacturing, because of government giving more incentive in terms of building infrastructure, because of digitization and rationalization of existing tax system, the cost of doing business has come down, and India as a market is going to grow further. And I have no doubt that this economic growth is continue to happen even in the future.
We leave it there. Thank you very much, Dr. Nilanjan Bonik. Thank you for helping us understand that and putting that into context for us. IMF, very bullish about India just before their annual meeting.